the internet's not broken. It's just evolving. Practices, your practice, the one that's going to succeed are the ones that focus on the high quality, authentic patient resources rather than trying to game the system. Hey there, welcome to the Dr. Marketing Tip Show. I am Jennifer.
I'm Corey.
And today we're going to be talking about Google's May 2026 core update, which they just recently completed. So if your medical practice noticed a sudden drop or a sudden surge in website traffic, phone calls, or patient inquiries over the last 2 weeks or so, we're recording this on June 3rd. Well, you aren't imagining things, and that's because Google just dropped a major algorithm update on the internet, the interwebs that are out there.
Yeah, so what happens, they do this a couple times a year where Google will just go in and they will tinker with something. Sometimes it's a small change. Sometimes it's a big change. This core update rollout. So what'll happen is they start to do this, and then it usually takes a little bit of time before it's done. So this update started in May, like Jen just said. It actually just completely rolled out yesterday, so June 2nd, which is why we wanted to record this today. And so what's interesting about that is that usually the rollout is not that short of a time frame. So this one was actually pretty quick. So what we wanted to do today was kind of explain what this stuff is and what this actually means for you, and kind of something that we're paying attention to and we think that you should be as well.
Yeah. And I mean, look, AI is driving all of this because Google's trying to keep up with all the changes that are going on.
100%.
But a core update means that Google completely rewrote the rule book on how they're ranking websites, which impacts your medical practice and how you have been, and all of us have been relying on organic SEO to attract new patients.
So basically what's happening is they are accelerating this update cadence. Like I mentioned, normally it doesn't happen that quickly. The last core update was in April. This new one was in May. So basically, like Jen just said, they're increasing that cadence to try and keep up with AI. So that's a 43-day gap between these core updates. And it used to be, those were months and months apart. So this is a really tight cadence. And I think you're right. That's nail on the head. The reason is because of AI.
Yeah. And Google's, they're rapidly rebuilding their core ranking engine to feed the AI because websites need more trustworthy, original, and safe content. I was watching a webinar that Neil Patel did. I was actually watching it this morning on the treadmill. And he said, it's no longer search engine optimization, it's search everywhere optimization. And that's part of what this core update is just being prepared for everything in the way that the data is being pulled, whether it's from search engines, which is Google, or, the different AI engines and things of that nature.
Yeah, and I think Google's also getting better about trying to line up their release schedule, if you will. So if you're a nerd like me, you pay attention to how these things kind of roll out. So Google every year does this thing called Google I/O. And at Google I/O, they announce a bunch of different products, a bunch of different services, tweaks, new features, whatever. And so this year they announced that. And then one day after that, they did the core update. Normally, that cadence is a little off. Apple does the same thing where Apple will have a developer conference. Usually it's around June, and then they'll release products in September. And it's kind of like clockwork. And that they're going to have a conference and then a thing is going to change. And Google's kind of falling into that too. In addition to that, like you said, I think it all kind of is coming back to AI. They mentioned actually at that event that the AI mode, which is you go to Google, you can hit that AI mode button, hit 1 billion monthly active users. And AI overviews, which everyone kind of gets whether you want them or not, has reached 2.5 billion users. So this core update, and we'll talk about this more in a second, but it's kind of meant to help provide better answers, better context to the people using those services.
Yeah, so let's talk about what actually has changed, Corey.
Yeah, so this is something that we pay attention to all the time because as we're dealing with the changing environment, we've got one eye on the reporting metrics and then also one eye on what kind of the goals are for our clients. So we're looking at this all the time. So if you see that your rankings dropped, that is not necessarily a penalty. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong. It is a direct result of some of these changes. So what'll happen is they go in and like I said, they'll tweak something. We have seen this multiple times over the years where, for example, I always come back to this. There was a rehabilitation practice that we were working with where anywhere in the world you could say, what are some knee exercises that I can do at home? And this rehab practice would show up as the number one search result, which is awesome. Like, it's fun to kind of hang your hat on that, but it doesn't necessarily drive them more patients, right? Because if you're in Anaheim, California, you're not coming to Orlando to do this. So it was cool, but then they did a core update, and then that listing fell basically off the face of the earth unless you were in the region that we were talking about. So things like that, I think, is something to keep in mind. Yeah, the ebb and flow of these results, especially right after an update, is typical. So you may see a spike, you may see a decline real quick.
Well, I think it also reinforces, just like the example that you just gave, like marketing in general, finding up when your patients are searching for you. It's not quick wins because it changes all the time. You got to have the right foundations in place, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. I think when it relates to like this whole, like, is it a penalty? Is it not a penalty? You've got to like think of it like those lists that come out of top 100 hospitals. All the hospitals, they put all their ads on the top 100 were ranked US News and World Report. If your ranking drops, it means that other hospitals stepped up their game and now they've moved ahead of you. It's, because it's raced. You're moving up and you're moving down. Google is just kind of reweighting the scoring metrics that they have out there. I don't think the world's on fire here, but you just need to make sure that your team or whoever that is doing this for you is focusing on those foundational elements. And I don't think we need to overly react for things every time there's a change, but we just need to be aware of it and make sure we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, one of the common questions that I always get is, well, how do we know what changed? Or can you tell me what changed? And the short answer to that is not really. It's not like Google doesn't really come out and say, we adjusted X, which means Y is now going to happen. What we do know is the overall goal of the update was to, and this is a quote from them, quote, better surface relevant, satisfying content from all types of sites, end quote, which is what search engines do anyway. So if you're doing the right things, you're producing good content, you're answering questions that are for your patients or for your potential patients, you don't really have anything to worry about. What might happen though is, and we've seen this before in other updates, where for whatever reason, certain categories of businesses tend to be affected by some of these changes more than others. So in this one, they're saying that money and lifestyle categories, which includes healthcare, medicine, and wellness, are some of the ones that may see some of this volatility. And again, it's all going back to what Jen just said. They're reweighting the metrics, but if you're doing all the right things, you don't have anything to worry about. Just know that your numbers may bounce around.
Well, and I think you just said it, if you're doing the right things. So Google was pretty explicit. And they said if they're aggressively punishing the thin, overly optimized SEO first content, it's that slop that is the 500-word articles that are generated by AI using the free plan. And there's zero healthcare oversight or provider oversight or anything. That's the kind of stuff that's being penalized, which is not doing the right thing in the first place.
If you're producing content, you're having your providers look at it, you're backlinking, you've got some videos in there, you're doing all the things that you should be doing from an SEO, GEO standpoint anyway, you're going to be fine. And so that kind of leads to what we like to call kind of the golden rule, is basically just don't overreact when this happens. When these updates roll out, especially on our side, or if you have somebody on your marketing team that is looking at reports every day, if you do that, you know who you are. When you see these things, the immediate reaction is to panic and say, there's a dip, we got to change something, let's go in and let's start switching out where things are linked and create some new content, whatever. I would say don't touch your website yet. Nothing to panic. So
I think reacting is like the key thing, because the data is unreliable.
Right.
Your bounce rates are going to go up and they're going to go down, and maybe violently during the final days of the rollout. And Google Search Console has a known bug affecting impression data and link reports. So if the traffic's down, just realize there was an update. And so, Corey, from our side, we got to make sure all the client success managers on our team are communicating this to clients, because they need to realize that, things are going to go up and down for the immediate. And when we're comparing 90-day, like quarter over quarter, we need to be aware that this happened during this quarter.
Right. Yeah. And I know one of the clients that I talk to all the time, they were just preparing a deck for their board. And so I think that this one is not going to show up on that deck, but it's going to show up on the next one. So yeah, right. So it's something that if if you're in the midst of creating some reports and getting ready to do this, and you've got a big marketing committee meeting or whatever you're doing, this is something to focus on, because there may be a decline or there may be a huge increase. There may be a spike in the data where you're going to go look at this 6 months from now and go, wow, I wonder what happened at the beginning of June, and how do we do that again? And the answer is you can't. So yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So something to pay attention to for sure. I would say a couple of rules: don't rewrite pages right now. Don't delete large sections of your website. If you're saying like, oh, let me kind of cull what's not working and just get rid of it. Well, don't do that. Don't change navigation, internal linking structure. This is a good time to take stock of where you are, make a note of what's happening, and if you see an increase or a decrease, but don't change anything just yet.
Yeah, totally. And if you make any structural changes while the algorithm is still settling, you're not going to know if that future traffic was caused by the update Google did or by you being reactionary to what was going on. So this is a great week. This week, maybe next week, go take a vacation. Work on a project. Don't be making major changes to your site.
Right. Yeah. It's summer anyway, right? We should be going on vacation, enjoying time with the family.
Says the man to Michigan, so you're just ready to be out into the warm weather while the rest
The
of us.
The sun is shining. It's so hard to sit in front of a computer right now.
Seriously. So let's talk about if the practice wants to diagnose their site, what is it they should be paying attention to?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is exactly what you just said. Homework is, let's wait a week or two before we do anything. And then from there, establish some baselines. Go into Google Search Console, look at pick 2 weeks prior to the update, pick 2 weeks after, see if there's any change there. If there's no change, you got nothing to worry about. If you do see a spike, again, I would say the first thing to do is just note what the spike is, and then not necessarily go in and try and diagnose that just yet. Once it has time to settle, though, you want to go in and then identify some winners and losers and see if there's a specific treatment page, as an example, that dropped, or a blog that spiked in traffic, or, what has kind of remained flat. And then, it might also be worthwhile to, once you note those things, look at who took your spot and see what they did. If there's anything that you can kind of learn from that. And then from there, once you've got that list, then I think you have kind of a next step to say, okay, this is now working. This is not working. Here's what has replaced what was there. So what do we do to improve?
Yeah, and I think you want to establish the baseline like we would for anyone. So again, like for our client team, they're going to be listening to this and saying, okay, I got to make sure I do this for my clients. But you want to possibly, when you're looking at your reporting, you want to look at the data prior to May 21st, which is when the update started. And then you want to look at the data after June 9th, which would give Google plenty of time to go through this. And you want to focus on those actual clicks, the organic clicks and the conversions that you've got, not just like those, random keyword rankings. I think the next thing that you need to do to make sure your practice is ready and you're diagnosing what's going on, just focus on the basics. Focus on the EAT acronym: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. This is what Google likes. Make sure your doctor bio pages are robust, they're up to date. You always want to be making additions and changes to your site anyway. You want to make sure that all those articles are reviewed by a provider. And that there's a clear byline. This might actually be something, Corey, that we need to go revisit for clients, because we typically don't add a byline, partly because it's very difficult to get a provider to sign off on a document. So at least with ortho, we will often have like an athletic trainer do it. So we may be putting them as a byline there. And then genuinely answer those real world questions instead of just repeating keywords. I think we're good because we've been doing this for years, where we add the FAQ, we have the blogs that start with questions, and you name it, but you really want to answer, the questions that people are asking. And that's just like marketing 101. So just double down on the stuff that has worked for us for years.
Well, and if you just kind of zoom out from a technical level and you take stock of kind of like what's happening, right? So we started this episode by saying that Google is updating this stuff essentially to provide better answers for AI, either in AI summaries or Gemini on Android phones. Gemini is going to power Siri here starting in September. So sorry if I made anyone's phone go off. I just made mine go off when I said the SIRI. But yeah, so they're preparing for those things. So if you know that that's what's happening, then the last thing that Jen just said should really be your homework, where you have to go and answer a patient's actual questions. And if you do that the right way and you have robust answer pages, it's actually like a detailed answer, you're going to be good. So if you are going to change anything, to me, that is the big takeaway. Is if you're wondering what content to produce, go to your providers and ask them, what are the most common questions you're hearing? And there's your content strategy. Because as people start to interact more with these either AI chatbots or voice assistants or whatever's coming next, that's how you're going to start to rank.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, the internet's not broken. It's just evolving. Practices, your practice, the one that's going to succeed are the ones that focus on the high quality, authentic patient resources rather than trying to game the system. So if you are doing what used to be referred to, what was it called? Like black hat, gray hat SEO practices, you're not doing well. And if you think for a second that you're going to just use ChatGPT to write a bunch of content, it's also not going to rank well. That's part of the reason for doing some of this stuff. So, with that said, let's not overreact. Let's just pay attention to what's going on and let's look at it as a long game and not a short game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think the big takeaway is go ask your providers, get some answers, and then provide some real value, and don't just throw some stuff into ChatGPT and copy and paste, because that's what everybody else is doing and that's what they're getting penalized for. So be better.
Yeah. So if you're not sure how you are looking as it relates to all this stuff that we're talking about, you're not sure if you're going to be a winner or a loser related to this update, head over to our website at insightmg.com and go ahead and book a discovery call, and we can have a conversation about what's going on with your website and if there's any opportunity that we might be able to help.
Yep. Sounds good. Thanks for listening, guys.
Awesome. Everybody, have a great day. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. Thanks a bunch. If you want more like this, hit like and subscribe so you'll always be alerted to new episodes when they come out. And if you want information about us, visit us over at insightmg.com. That's insightmg.com. We'll see you on the next episode.